Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to Synchronicity Web TV. I am your host, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. Well, I'm so excited to celebrate with you today my friend, Ursula Stockder. Now, you've seen her before, that's for sure, because she has been interviewed by me at Synchronicity Web TV, and she's also taught at Synchronicity University, popular course that she did called Jung and Tarot. Well, now Ursula is back at Synchronicity University. This time she'll be teaching on Jung and astrology, a very hotly requested course. And now here we are, the perfect person to teach it, a Jungian analyst, a brilliant person, a compassionate person, an insightful person, as Ursula is, as she's shown you she is again and again. But for me, she's my friend. She's someone I hang out with, somebody I love so much. My hermana mexicana. Welcome, Ursula. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here again with you and your Synchronicity University. It's gorgeous, all the work you have done, and well, you are wonderful. And I remember the first time I heard you speak at ISAR. I loved your voice, your enthusiasm. You are so wonderful speaking and transmitting. Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course, yeah, and now we're friends too. But that would have been the first time I spoke at ISAR was 2016. And so I remember doing like a lunchtime talk. And so that might have been where I think we first met. But it was like, oh yeah, Ursula's Mexican. And so I was like, oh, wow, okay. Yeah, I just moved to Mexico a couple of years ago. So it's been really nice to be so embraced by, just in general, so many astrologers who've loved me so much and have trusted me to bring their skills to my school as well, but also to be embraced by Mexican astrologers as well. It just meant a lot to me, especially because I lived there for 10 years. But now here we are. I am a nomad. But you and I, we keep our love going, our friendship going. And so, yes, as I said, Ursula is coming back to Synchronicity University, teaching a 5-week course on Jung and astrology. You've got just a couple of weeks left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class, an unheard of rate to learn from the one and only Ursula Stockder. So, Ursula, your course, Jung and astrology, what did Carl Jung say and talk about where it came to astrology?
Well, Jung had two periods in his life that are very important. First, his parents were more into this clergy and religion, and well, this relationship with a spiritual part that Jung wasn't very. He didn't like very much the approach his father had. So what he really wanted to study was archaeology, but he couldn't do that because of financial problems they had. So he studied medicine. And at the beginning, when he was studying medicine, he had like two options: to be a surgeon or to be like an internist. And well, he went to this second part, and later he found out some writings about psychiatry, and then he started to get interested in hypnotism and symbolism and science. He, as all his love for archaeology made him also very much connected to mythology. So he was very interested in mythology, in science, and history, and in philosophy, and all this Nietzsche and Goethe influence. So he later got to know Freud. And Freud was in his older age, like 50 years old, and he was really looking for someone who could be his follower. And Jung started to study a lot with Freud, but later they had really a problem because Jung, although he wasn't really very much into this religion inclination about his father, he was a very spiritual man, and he was always like thinking about what was going beyond. He was an introvert when he was a little child. Well, later with this relation with Freud, it was a very close relationship. But later they had a problem with the dream analysis, because one time Jung came to Freud and told him about a dream he had. He dreamt that he was in a house with 3 floors, and the upper floor was full of light. The second floor were like furniture that was a little old, and in the 3rd floor, there were 2 skeletons. So that was his first relation to the conscious, to the unconscious, and to the collective unconscious. Freud immediately analyzed his dream from the Freudian perspective and said, if you are seeing 2 skeletons, you're relating those 2 skeletons to my death. So Jung said, no, it isn't really that. But Freud thought that they had a huge disagreement. And Freud said to Jung, you are wanting to kill me. So that was the beginning of their rupture, of their separation. And with that also the sexuality and thanatos, that Freud thought that the energy that moved like the humanity was sexuality, and Jung said no, it is really more the spiritual part. Jung got into a psychosis during several years due to the separation. And in this separation, he had like 2 visions about two characters, like Philomena and Salomon. And these 2 were the anima and the animus. So he started all his theory about the anima. The anima is the feminine energy in a man, and the animus, the masculine energy in a woman. And he got very much in touch with the Hermetism. Hermetism was something that really triggered his mind very much, about also all this alchemy and this albedo, nigredo, albedo, and rubedo, and the transformation, and to look for the philosophical stone. So he made a relationship there with also the elements, with the psychological functions, and looking for this philosophical stone. And so the philosophical stone, he also he had a very, very deep research, not only into the psychological functions, although the most important are the archetypes, the individuation process, that's also the process where you get to know yourself more. And then also the therapy, the relation therapy. In alchemy, what we see is this part. Also, when you have a deep transformational relationship, it can be with another person, or also with your therapist, your astrologer, whatever. You go through this transformation. So he, in his second part of his life, like from 45 years on, he develops this, and he gets to study Blavatsky and Alice Bailey. And what he makes the huge difference is that he fuses like research with spirituality, and he gets very interested in astrology, in Kabbalah, in Gnosticism, in tarot. So that's his search for spirituality and to get more in touch with the universe and this spiritual part. So did I answer your question?
Yes. Well, look, I love that you connected it to a few different things because I know a little bit of the history as well. So I know there have been a lot of books written about Jung and astrology, especially from that perspective that you just shared. You talked about his incredible spiritual, historical development, like how he became who he became. And especially when we connect it to astrology as part of the Theosophy movement, as part of the work that Alice Bailey was doing as well, how he ended up contributing to and really being this incredibly important figure in the New Age movement, sort of taking this, the older teachers like Madame Blavatsky, but he really helped to usher it that much more into an understanding that was more scholarly, more academic, but also spoke that much more personally because it wasn't about energies out there. It was about you and how you're living these mythologies and how Jung speaks to that mythologically, the astrological part of it as well. And I'm thinking about one of my former professors, Maggie Hyde, actually wrote a book among the many books that people have written. And her book was called Jung and Astrology. So I remember way back in the day having a chance to sort of study his journey. You mentioned something really interesting. You talked about how he had that breakdown. And so I think of it as like a dark night of the soul. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I remember and understand of his story, he sort of stayed in that space or sort of started to work himself out of that space over a period of about 7 or 8 years. And during that time, he had what was called the Red Book, right? Where he really documented his journey and what he was coming to understand. And I always loved that about his work because I just see the contribution that he's made in so many ways. But so many of us come to astrology through something challenging. Like I know for me, I had my own dark night of the soul. It was I had my Saturn return at the same time that Pluto was conjunct my moon. So that'll do it, right? It's so interesting how it is that on the other side of that dark night of the soul, it was like he really came to understand that we are living these ancient myths, and astrology gives us this very powerful tool for understanding how those mythologies, how those ancient gods and deities are living through us, how we can understand our own stories through understanding these ancient stories as well. So it's
definitively.
Yeah. And I know you studied that so much. Yeah.
Yes, because, well, Freud only analyzed like 3 myths. He wasn't really very interested in myths. So that's the huge difference with Jung, that Jung really got in touch, because myths is said that's the dreams of the of society, of humanity. And the dreams we live every night and we have every night, those are our individual myths. So it's so what I've seen when I analyze myths, like you always can relate to some part of the myth, not to the whole. So that's the fascinating part also in this individuation process, where you can really see how you identify with the different stages of myths. Like I have done a thorough research with Hercules. Hercules is also a very, very interesting mythological figure. So you can analyze his childhood, his youth, his genius also in his youth, and how he can control it. And then you can get very much in touch with what Alice Bailey related to the 12 labors of Hercules. So, and the different signs. So the sequence of that Alice Bailey has, she says that she had this influence of the Tibetan and they told her so what she should think about it. So if we see the Hercules myth, we can analyze it through so different points of view, and even Jung has different parts where he analyzes Hercules from the point of view of the double paternity and how we look for genius, that all children are afraid of parents or the parents are afraid. If you have like a child that's overly has a lot of like strength and genius and creativity, that you do not know how to handle it. And so that's the interesting part about myths. So Jung got very much in touch with myths that I'm also going to analyze the myths of the sun and the moon, and then we are going also to touch on the shadow, or during the individuation process we are going to analyze the Perseus and the Medusa, and what the different psychologists thought about it, and what Jung thought about it, and what he researched about it. So I think if we go into the mythology from the Jungian perspective, it's so deep, so profound, that each of us as astrologers, if we get to integrate a little bit of this of Jung's research, it is so helpful for us to have like a broader perspective also of astrology and understand more astrology.
Well, I want to just go back for 1 second. Two people you named, one we've already talked about, which was Madame Blavatsky. So for those who don't know, she was key in the whole Theosophical Society and really making that into an organization. And she was a key figure in helping to create this bridge between Eastern and Western spiritualities. Yes. Now, Alice Bailey, you mentioned as well. Alice Bailey was the teacher of Alan Leo. And Alan Leo, a lot of people have heard of him in astrological circles for a bunch of reasons, but one is, of course, his book, incredibly influential to astrologers to this day, called Esoteric Astrology. Well, Alice Bailey was his teacher, and Alice Bailey ended up being an important figure for Carl Jung as well, in terms of how they helped each other understand mythologies and astrology as well. And so I love that you mentioned, I know, like as part of this course that's coming up. So once again, you guys, Ursula Stockder is back at synchronicityuniversity.com. And for a very limited time, you can choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class. You've got about 2 weeks left to do that, an unheard of rate for this caliber of astrologer. And as a side note, Ursula has been kind enough to also offer the previous course she did on Jung and Tarot, and that is available for as low as just $5 a class as well. All of that at synchronicityuniversity.com. Links are in the description below. But I'm really excited about your course. I know that you just quickly touched on these different myths. I know I'm completely fascinated by myth. I remembered when I was a little girl, a cartoon that we used to watch when we were getting ready for school. So the cartoon would play while we were eating our cereal. We were getting ready. Our parents were preparing us to go to school, me and my brother. And there was this one cartoon that we used to watch. It was called Hercules. And there was like a little song. I hope I don't get a copyright strike, but I'm going to sing a little bit of a song. Hercules, singer of song and story, Hercules, winner of ancient glory, fighting for his right. Da, 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 da. With the strength of 10 ordinary men, it's the mighty Hercules. So I don't get a copyright strike, but yeah, I still remember that song. And I think to myself sometimes, with these childhood influences, how could I have become anything other than who I became, right? So
yes,
yeah, right? It's incredible how influential these experiences and these informations we take into our psyche at such a young age, they become incredibly important in sort of laying the foundation of whom it is that we become. So, Ursula, is there a myth of Hercules that you really like? And maybe you can talk about that, but also include what it means astrologically for us.
Atlas and Prometheus, they are brothers, and he rescues Prometheus from the underworld. And Prometheus has, like, they both, being from Atlantis, they both are going to give their knowledge to Hercules at the end, because Hercules is this figure where he unites the West and the East. Both of the columns, that means it's like the limits between the West and the East. And the limits were there, like Rome, Greece, Turkey, those were the limits. And what Hercules signifies is that Prometheus and Atlas, they both are giving to Hercules the knowledge of the zodiac and of astrology. So many people think about Hercules as being like this macho man, aggressive, and who kills his wife and children. But he has to go through this initiation process and always like thinking about issues between life and death, and how he has to manage and overcome this fear of death. So that at the end, Prometheus and Atlas, Atlas with this huge, he is carrying the world, and he is going to give this world the knowledge of the world and the zodiac of the universe. He gives that to Hercules during his last labor. And this last labor is related to Pisces. So I think this is one of the most important, and also the other is also very important, the Nemea lion, where he takes this force of the lion and he makes it by himself. So different gods are going to help Hercules during all his process, all his initiation process. But at the end, he said, well, I'm going to use my own force and my own strength to do it. So at the end, that's the way he is going to be immortal, and Hera is going to make him his most precious child, because what Hera really means and Hercules really means is the grace of Hera. And Hera puts him, although she really doesn't want Zeus' children, it's Perseus and Hercules, both come from the same lineage. Perseus is the grandfather of Hercules, really. And she puts these heroes through this individuation process, where they have to be in contact with humility and with themselves. So that's an initiation process we also as humans have to go through. And I think that's so interesting.
Beautiful.
About,
yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? Because we all go through that. Yeah, we all go through that whole journey that you just described, like this whole idea of, like bringing things to conclusion, but also garnering wisdom and the gifts that we're given and being connected to them, but also the love that we carry, right? Of these important figures in our life, as Hercules did with his mom, Hera. It's incredible how all of that shows up, particularly how you connected all of that to the energy of Pisces. I mean, I can just imagine, and for myself right now, I'm thinking, what do I have in Pisces? How is this, how is what I have in Pisces being encapsulated by what you just told me with that story? So I can only imagine all 12 stories are going to be amazing to really consider with all the different signs. For me, I have my midheaven in Pisces. And so I definitely relate, like, yeah, how it is that I've gone for the things that I've been able to do and achieve, and that higher vision, right? Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's like it's a gift, but then also it's like something that, you know, you have to go through a rite of passage to get that gift. And it's incredible. I can see Hercules right there. From the time I was a child, he was singing to me, right?
Well, that's incredible. Well, we are really going to analyze Perseus, but we have to think about Perseus being like the grandfather of Hercules. And what I think it's interesting about this last myth, it's like it's very much related to Atlantis. So everybody has heard at least about Atlantis, but they don't know what Atlas or Prometheus have to do with Atlantis. And they had this knowledge, and that's why Hercules is going to be so important for the Greek, Roman, for the Spanish speaking people. It's not only Spain, it's also Mexico. So everywhere where we see two columns, so we also can see it and several tarot cards there's also always these two columns, and they signify the limits between East and West.
Incredible. So once again, you guys, Ursula is coming back to Synchronicity University with her course, Jung and Astrology, and a very special announcement. I have to say, very excited about this. Ursula is going to be teaching the very first Spanish language course at Synchronicity University, and it's the same class, Jung and Astrology. So whether it's you and you want to get a pass for your Spanish-speaking friend, or you want to practice your Spanish and take the class in Spanish, like I will probably do, or whether it is that you are a native Spanish speaker, now this is the very first course in Spanish that we are going to have at Synchronicity University. And it really feels like we're starting right at the top with Ursula, one of the best out there. And remember, you have about 2 weeks left to choose your tuition rate, whether you take it in English, whether you take it in Spanish, whether you download her previous course, all of that for a very limited time. Choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class at synchronicityuniversity.com. Well,
and
Ursula,
I have another announcement to make, because I have spoken to Faye and David Cochran. As you know, I am the representative of Cosmic Patterns, and for this course, if they purchase this course or the tarot, they are going to get a special discount in Series 4. There is the new release of Series 4 or Kepler. The Series 4 from $550 to $500, and the Kepler 8 from $300 to $225. So that's the special gift Faye is giving you from Cosmic Patterns.
Thank you, Ursula, for being here. So grateful for you. And thank you, everybody out there, for watching. Until we connect again, take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.